Number 64 of the
Point
House
of
of
order.
Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Pursuant to Standing Order 81.4, the committee meets to discuss on Maine Estimates 2023. And before we start, I will go to Mr. Angus, who has his hand up for a point of order. Mr. Angus.
Yes, I've been listening to the minister attempting to get his sound working, and I understand we often have problems with sound. But when we have a meeting now, it is we in the opposition expect that the minister will attend in person. This is not COVID. This is, to me, highly irregular, and if we have any sound problems with them and we can't continue with them, then this whole meeting is put in jeopardy. So I think it's just real questionable that the minister did not come here in person to be able to brief us.
Okay, thank you for your point of order. We extended the invitation to the minister. He was available virtually, which is still allowed by the House. And this was the date that he was available so that we could get through Mains and then report back to the House. So we'll see. We'll do the best that we can.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I
Yes,
thought
Mr.
that the
McLean.
House had suspended that for ministers, that they had to appear in person at these hearings.
No, that's not the information that we've been given. We encourage the ministers to attend, but right now the minister is not in Ottawa. And so this is how we were able to plug him in, and that is how the committees are operating at this time. So continuing with this, we will have our witnesses. We'll have the minister for the first hour. Because we have a late start, I believe the minister has 1 hour, and then we'll go into a second round with officials. I'll check actually with the committee members now if we want to go beyond 5:30. Or because if we're going to end at 5:30, we need a few minutes at the end to do the process for reporting the mains back. And so we'll probably stop testimony then about 5:15, if that works. And I do have an item at the end related to our travel submission for fall travel that I'd like to also deal with because the deadline is Friday and we're not sitting on Friday. So that will be the order for the afternoon. Now, I think everybody has been around the block enough times. We know the rules about addressing questions through the chair. If those online, use the raise hand function. You have to mute yourself. You can use the translation features. And to get the show on the road, Minister, we'll go to you for your 5-minute opening statement. And I'll signal you when the 5 minutes are up, and then we'll get right into our rounds of questions. Oh, and before we get into that, welcome Mr. Doherty, Mr. McLean, and Ms. Sadu to our Natural Resources Committee today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the significant investments we are making within NRCan's Maine Estimates. I would like to acknowledge that I am joining you today from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I look forward to speaking with you about how these estimates are supporting our efforts to build a prosperous, competitive, low-carbon economy. Before I do so, I want to just say my thoughts are with all of the families and communities affected by the wildfires in Alberta and across Western Canada. We are, of course, following the situation extremely closely, and as a government, we will continue to provide federal assistance wherever and however best we can. Aujourd'hui, les marchés financiers mondiaux.
Right now, global financial markets are demanding and rewarding low-carbon products. This is because in recent years, governments like this one have been taking serious climate action to steer markets in that direction. And because I believe more and more people are acutely aware of the scientific reality and existential threat of climate change. This is presenting a generational economic opportunity for those who act boldly to build the economy of tomorrow. We're fortunate that Canada is well placed to seize this opportunity.
Is a choice. We can double down on this trajectory, making a plan for the future which grows the economy and protects the planet for future generations, or we can bury our heads in the sand, hope for the best, and let the world pass us by. This government chooses the former, and we choose to play to Canada's strengths. Canada's natural resources give us significant advantages in being able to provide the world with clean energy while creating good jobs here at home. We have a highly trained workforce and are increasingly the diversity and strength of our natural resources sectors. Our economy supports innovation, and our government is promoting the inclusion of Indigenous knowledge and expertise and economic participation. We have an abundance of critical minerals and hydrogen that the world will be increasingly demanding as Canada and the rest of the world develop more and more in the way of clean energy and clean technologies. And we offer an outstanding level of stability to investors and our allies. We have a banking, regulatory, political, and legal systems that are stable. We have trade agreements with many of the major economies in the world. We develop and meet high environmental, social, and governance standards. The proposed investments that you see here are the next step in the agenda focused on growing clean energy and clean technologies that this government has been working on for years. Having access to clean, affordable, reliable electricity is imperative when it comes to achieving our legislated target of making Canada net zero by 2050. And that is why Canada is committed to having a net zero grid by 2035. To that end, you'll see there are two main items in these estimates that support the modernization of our electrical grid, namely the Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways Program, as well as the Electricity Pre-Development Program. To many other countries, our grid is already enviably clean, but we are determined to do even more to protect our environment while providing affordable, reliable, and clean power to all Canadians. Building out the grid and increasing its percentage of clean energy, as well as transitioning to electric vehicles, will allow Canada's municipalities to reduce emissions from vehicles, waste, and buildings. Les investissements visant à réduire les émissions.
Investments to reduce buildings emissions appear again in the estimates through the complementary measures to the Emissions Reduction Plan. These investments will help us continue to lower the emissions from homes, schools, hospitals, office buildings, and industrial buildings, which is key to getting to net zero by 2050.
Funding from the Canada Greener Homes Grant for energy-efficient retrofits are also in the estimates, as are investments to recruit, train, and mentor energy advisors to carry out the evaluations. Un soutien continu dans ce domaine nous permettra.
Continued support in this area will allow us to carry on our efforts to make our homes more resistant to the effects of climate change. And as a global inflation continues to affect hardworking Canadians, these renovations will make their home heating bills more predictable and affordable.
Program in the estimates, which achieved 97% of its first-year target in terms of planting, and through which in just the past 6 months, we've signed 7 agreements in principle with 7 provinces and territories. 6 of those have signed specific planting commitments underneath the agreements in principle, and we're working with the others to expand that collaboration. We've negotiated multi-year agreements that will see 260 million more seedlings planted across Canada over the program's lifespan, and that is just the beginning. We'll soon be able to provide the total planting numbers for the second year of the program, and what I can say right now is that we have surpassed our federal and urban land planting goals, and we are confident we will reach the 2 billion target in the next decade with provinces, territories, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and Indigenous governments and organizations. As you can see, the investments we're proposing in the main estimates have a common goal, no matter the topic: greener homes, energy innovation, critical minerals, zero-emission vehicles, forestry, building out the grid. By making these strategic investments, we are supporting Canadians' capacity to create new opportunities in the low-carbon economy. We are supporting Indigenous participation in the natural resources sector and supporting their leadership in a prosperous net zero future. And we're enabling a clean, reliable, secure, and affordable supply of energy for everyone. I certainly look forward to our conversation and our questions and answers today. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Minister. And before we go into our rounds of questions, I just wanted to do a quick welcome to our officials. In the room with us, we have Molly Johnson, Associate Deputy Minister. We have Angie Bruce, Assistant Deputy Minister. No, Angie's not here. Angie's on, got my wrong. Shirley Carruthers, Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Deputy Minister, Corporate Management and Services Sector. So welcome to you two. And Jeff Labonte, Assistant Deputy Minister, Lands and Mineral Sector. And you've all been here before, so welcome back. Joining us online, we have Angie Bruce, Assistant Deputy Minister, Nokwekwashk. We have Drew Leyburn, Assistant Deputy Minister, Energy Efficiency and Technology Sector. Monique Frison, Director General, Trade, Economics and Industry Branch. Aaron O'Brien, Assistant Deputy Minister, Fuel Sector. Christina Paradiso, Director General. and Anne Routhier, Director General and Head of Performance Measurement. And so thank you all for joining us. And with that, we will go right into the first round of questions. And Ms. Stubbs, it's over to you for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for your comments about the wildfires in Alberta and your government's action in that regard. I just have a quick question for you about Line 5. Of course, today Canada's Washington Embassy expressed deep concern about that potentially being shut down on Thursday. That would threaten, of course, 6,000 jobs in Sarnia, fuel supply for Quebec and Ontario, undermine North American energy security, which is more important now than ever, and, of course, billions of dollars in government revenue that support government spending. I would note that it took over 2 years until this government seemed to finally listen to Conservatives and actually invoke the 1977 Pipelines Treaty for this critical energy corridor that the Prime Minister did say was, quote, non-negotiable. I don't know if you could give us some insight into this, but like if that's the case, why didn't the Prime Minister raise it directly with U.S. President Joe Biden when he was here in March?
Thank you for the question. I guess one thing I would say just off the top is I don't think there's much disagreement between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party on the importance of Line 5 in terms of ensuring that it continues in operation and the need for us to be working collaboratively and pressuring the United States to ensure that it is doing what it needs to do. As you said, we did invoke the treaty. That was an important step. We work very closely with the company, including up to the issuance of the statement last night. We will continue to work very closely with the company to ensure that this critical piece of infrastructure remains open. I will tell you that I have raised it at every opportunity with Secretary Granholm, who is the Secretary of Energy, and I know the Prime Minister has raised it on a number of occasions with the President.
Thank you, Minister. It does, of course, stand in stark contrast to total lack of legal intervention and support to the proponent in the case of the Keystone XL pipeline. But I guess we are on Line 5 all going to have to wait for that court decision when obviously the President's direct intervention on request of the Prime Minister would have been helpful. Given your comments and your concerns that I share about the world passing Canada by, and also your comments about your goals, aggressive targets for electrification, I just want to also ask you about critical minerals. The Prime Minister is in South Korea now, where, of course, 80% of their critical minerals are supplied by China. And then he'll be in Japan, which also, of course, asks Canada both for critical minerals and for LNG. He says he'll be talking about the supply chain integration to replace dependence on Beijing's critical minerals. And, of course, these estimates do have $5 million, quote, in support of critical minerals. But, in fact, fewer than half of the mining applications since 2015 have actually made it through the duplicative and uncertain process your government has created. And mines do take up to 25 years to produce in Canada. The James Bay Lithium project, the most recent approved one, took 6 years, was just approved this year with 271 conditions, and won't produce lithium until 2024. The truth is that the only mine in Canada that has produced lithium since 2019 does it only as a byproduct of tantalum and is 100% owned and operated by a Beijing state-owned company that ships all of it overseas. So, Minister, lithium is on the top of your critical minerals list, but there's actually no Canadian ownership of producing Canadian lithium mines right now, which is a major critical mineral for EV batteries. And another one that's critical, phosphate, isn't even on your critical minerals list. Right now, the truth is, too, that Canada produces 0 rare earth metals needed for EV batteries and for wind and solar production. Yet in the last 6 months, your government has put in over $1.4 billion tax dollars to fix the permitting process that you broke, which seems to pay for roundtables and meetings, but obviously no actual outcomes that make a difference for Canada or for the world. So can you answer 2 questions, very simple, direct questions for all Canadians here? On what date will you actually implement the streamlined and accelerated process that will fix the mess that you made, that your own government does claim to want? And secondly, on what date will Canada actually produce and export all of the critical minerals on your list for Canadian self-sufficiency and to stop our allies' dependence on hostile regimes?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Certainly, critical minerals is an enormous opportunity. As you said, the Prime Minister is speaking to people in South Korea, but I was just at the G7 in Japan and certainly had many conversations with my counterparts, not just in Japan, but in Germany, in France, in the United Kingdom, and elsewhere, all of whom are very interested in Canada's critical minerals. We do need to ensure that we are making the assessment processes and the permitting processes, both at the federal and provincial levels, more efficient without cutting corners from an environmental perspective.
Yes, agreed. So on what date will that streamlined and accelerated process maintaining those standards be implemented?
Yeah. So in the budget, what we said is we would be coming forward with a plan on that before the end of the year, but there's already enormous work going on. With respect to producing and exporting, there actually is a mine that is just in the process of opening up, a lithium mine in Quebec that will be producing, and it will be doing so later this year. There is actually a rare earths mine in Canada. It's in the Northwest Territories, and it is processed in Saskatoon. So we have a long way to go in terms of building capacity, but we actually do produce the top 6 that actually are on the critical minerals list.
And with that, we are out of the 6 minutes. So we will now move to our next member, Vivian, Madame Lapointe, and you have 6 minutes. And just before you go, I'd like to remind members and to only have one person speaking. And when you ask a question, just like in the House, we'll give the minister time to respond. And by only having one person on the microphone, it makes it a lot easier for the interpreters to do their jobs. Thank you. And now, Ms. Lapointe, over to you for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Minister, for joining us at our committee today. What are you doing to improve Canada's regulatory and permitting processes to get good mining projects built right here at home?
Thank you. That is an excellent question. It's an important question. I should note that under this government in 2021, Canada exported record levels of metals and minerals, and it's now about 1/5 of our total merchandise exports. But certainly we are doing an enormous amount of work to ensure that we actually are making as efficient as possible Canada's regulatory and permitting processes. We have an internal process involving a number of different departments that is working on different ways in which we can actually make this work more efficiently. We announced over $1 billion in the fall economic statements for the Canadian Energy Regulator, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and a number of other departments to increase the capacity so that we are able to actually process the number of applications coming for us. There was another $1.3 billion in budget 2023 to several federal departments so they can continue to improve the efficiency of assessments for major projects. We confirmed to the board of directors of the CER in February that they are to identify key priorities as they deliver on their mandate, including working towards more efficient regulatory regimes. We're also working with provinces and territories who each have their own regulatory and permitting processes to align those better with the federal process. I think you will see initial product of some of that work later this or next week when we actually provide an update on the British Columbia regional table. We've approved now 4 mining sector projects since January: the Marathon Palladium Mine, the Valentine Gold Project, the James Bay Lithium Mine Project, and the Lynn Lake Gold Project. Certainly, this is a big effort, and it is an important effort. But again, it cannot be done by cutting corners from an environmental perspective or not discharging our obligation to Indigenous peoples, which is what the Harper government did, and really gummed up the process.
Comment le gouvernement va-t-il s'assurer que
How will the government ensure that the critical minerals resource will be developed while respecting the environment? We are going to ensure that the development occurs with minimal impact, and we can assure Canadians that we will do any development that will allow us to reach our climate goals. It will be done in a sustainable manner, and that is why we think it is important to ensure that we have a critical minerals supply system and that we have a sustainable domestic battery value chain. We're going to reinforce our confidence in Canadian and American firms. Those firms have made a commitment to extract and support critical minerals, which means working with Indigenous groups and local communities and protecting their culture at the same time. We are going to ensure that we have rigorous rules in place and that we have a good Canadian critical minerals strategy in cooperation with all of the environmental regulations. We will ensure that we have a sustainable system, and I have ensured the leaders of many countries of this at the meeting of the G15. There are many environmental protection measures that have been implemented that have proven that we are a good country to invest in and a good place to buy critical minerals.
Other mining communities across Northern Ontario, and that is, what role will the government play in supporting the scaling up and the commercialization of critical minerals processing and batteries?
So again, a very important question. There is no energy transition without a significant scale up in the exploration, extraction, processing, advanced manufacturing, and then the recycling of critical minerals. To this end, we have undertaken a whole range of measures in Budget 2023, including the $1.5 billion Critical Minerals Infrastructure Fund to accelerate critical minerals production, $1.5 billion through the Strategic Innovation Fund to support advanced manufacturing, processing, and recycling, and of course, the investment tax credit that was in the budget for clean technology manufacturing that will be applicable to the extraction, processing, or recycling of critical minerals. That is an extremely important thing that was very well received by the Mining Association of Canada and others. It's also about putting some funding into research, development, and demonstration. We announced just a month or so ago $14 million to support 6 projects under the Critical Minerals Research, Development, and Demonstration Program, which will advance the commercial readiness of emerging process technologies to support the development of value chains for zero-emission vehicles. Certainly, there will be more coming. Finally, I would say the Critical Minerals Center of Excellence will also support research for processing and battery precursors. It will help proponents engage the federal and provincial processes with respect to moving these projects forwards expeditiously.
Thank you, Minister.
Okay, we're pretty close to time, so we'll wrap up there and go to Monsieur Simard, who will have 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, John. Mr. Minister, I was listening to your presentation earlier, and you referred to the $2 billion trees program, and you said that by the end of the first year, we've reached 97% of our objectives. It seems to me that there are people who don't agree with you on that, especially the Environment Commissioner, who sent us a document in which it says that, in his view, meeting your objectives is unlikely in the 2 billion trees program. So, in the best of scenarios, you might reach 2.3% of your objectives in the last 2 years. And you're saying that this program is to go for 10 years. Do you think that there really is a clear strategy to plant those 2 billion trees? Thank you for the question. And the answer is yes. There is a plan. A year ago, we announced a projection on the number of trees that we're going to plant each year. The first year, we reached nearly 100% of our target. The second year, in the months to come, we'll announce the final figures. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. I don't want to cut you off, but I don't have much time here. Mr. Minister, I presume you are able to produce a work plan that your department has to plant those trees. If you would be able to provide us with that, I would certainly like to view it, and I'm sure others would be interested in studying it. Now, Mr. Minister, yesterday I had nothing better to do than to read your mandate letter. In your mandate letter, it said that you are supposed to lend support to the Deputy Minister of Finance and the Environment Minister, whereby you're supposed to find a way to put an end to funding fossil fuels by the end of 2023 and gradually end the funding of crown corporations for fossil fuels. Do you have a plan to end funding to those sectors? We're getting to the end of 2023, so this is becoming a little pressing. Thank you. Yes. Yes, we are trying to reduce fossil fuel use. We have certainly eliminated some funding, and we do plan to move forward to show you how we are going to achieve our goals by the end of 2023. Do you have a definition of what an ineffective funding of fossil fuel sector is? If so, I'd like to have it. Yes, that is something that's going to come with the plan. Thank you. Well, in the future, in your mandate letter, there's something that struck me. Working with the Intergovernmental Affairs and Infrastructure and Communities to prioritize the production of low-carbon products to be used in Canadian infrastructure. I was interested in reading that yesterday in your mandate letter because we studied S22 in this committee. We looked at wood, but it says that the industry, the government can use wood. So this bill is kind of redundant. Is there any plan for the government to take any measures to ensure that in government buildings there will be some low carbon emission products that are indeed used? Yes. We are currently working on a plan called Buy Clean. The focus is on materials that have low carbon emission. And yes, we will have something to discuss with you and other Canadians in the coming months. If I'm not mistaken, that is being developed right now. You don't have any idea of what it looks like right now. Is that correct? Yes. We started with cement. But yes, there are other products. And we are trying to develop a plan that we can communicate to all departments about the infrastructure that we are going to invest in cooperation with the provinces and the territories. You saw, just like I did, and I'm sure you were very pleased about this, you saw the Volkswagen announcement of $12 billion in Ontario. And in the budget, it was announced that the government was going to really go into the electrification sector. I thought that what Volkswagen was going to get was gas-fueled plants. It seems to me there is some contradiction there. You want to develop an industrial sector that's based on clean energy, but you're investing $13 billion. And in Ontario, Volkswagen, that is going to have these battery plants, their plants are going to be electricity powered. Isn't there a contradiction there? We are very proud of the Volkswagen announcement. Batteries are very important, will be important for the future. But of course, we have to have an electrical system, an electrical grid that is clean, and we're going to work to ensure that we have a clean system by 2035. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. We have a once-in-a-century opportunity, but we have a narrow window to make this happen because we get it wrong. What it means is that we're going to leave workers and communities behind. When I'm talking with workers, particularly energy workers, they're saying to me they're more than ready to step up, but they want more than promises. They've been asking for a couple of clear things and they are not sure they're getting it. They want an independent body. They want it to have a mandate. They want the legislation to ensure that they are at the table. So in the fall budget, the government talked about a sustainable jobs secretariat. Is that where workers are going to be at the table?
So as you know, Mr. Angus, we released the action plan for sustainable jobs a couple of months ago. Part of that was a commitment to bring forward legislation, which we are continuing to develop, but will be introduced before the end of the year. It will have architecture. The Secretariat is largely going to be where the federal government actually ensures that its different areas of the department are aligned, but there will be a partnership council, which will certainly involve significant representation from labor.
Yeah, I see that because, we were told the Sustainable Jobs Secretariat, we didn't need an independent body, there would be the Sustainable Jobs Secretariat. And then I read that it will provide the most up-to-date information on federal programs, funding, and services across government departments, which sounds to me like an office desk that puts out brochures. But then I read that the Sustainable Jobs Secretariat will be a sustainable jobs stream under union training. So is that's where they're going to be? Is the Secretariat going to be, you're going to be training workers there? Like, those are two very contradictory positions. Where is the table and what is the mandate that labor gets to sit at to say we have a say in the future of our communities and the future of our jobs?
That will be the Partnership Council.
No, now we got the Partnership Council. So, I got to go back, and I've been talking with the building trades, IBEW, Unifor Western Canada. Those are guys and women who, when management comes to us and says, trust us, they're saying, yeah, sure, you want us to trust you, put it in writing. So will that, the Sustainable Jobs Partnership Council, will that have legislation? What kind of mandate will it have? And what kind of role will workers have in that Partnership Council?
Well, certainly a lot of that was actually outlined in the Sustainable Jobs Action Plan, and the rest of it will be outlined in the legislation that will be forthcoming. But it certainly will have a broad ambit. It will be able to provide significant input in terms of the shape of needed programming and strategic orientation going forward.
So will that be legislated, the mandate, what rights they have to be heard? And how many seats will Labor have? What is this council? I mean, how many? You must have thought this out. Who's going to be at that council? Does it meet like once a year? Do they get to write in submissions, or is this a council that actually has the power to say Labor's voice, who represent the communities that are moving to a new economy, are going to have a say to make sure that that money's spent well?
Yeah, the focus very much is on the economic opportunities, ensuring we seize them, ensuring we are creating good jobs for workers and for the communities they live in. That is certainly something that will be discussed in the legislation. It's certainly something you and I have discussed on a number of occasions, and we certainly, as we continue to evolve the legislation, continue to look for input from folks, including yourself.
I appreciate that. I mean, what I'm hearing from Labor is they want to see it in writing. They want to see it in the legislation. If it's not in the legislation, it's going to be very hard for me and much harder for you to go and reassure them. Which brings me to the other there's so many moving parts here, which is the regional roundtables. And they talk about union partners in the regional roundtables, yet I've never met a union that's been involved in any of the roundtables. So is that roundtables? Who's at those roundtables? Does Labor get to sit at the table, or do they have to sit in another room and get called on once in a while?
So the regional tables are set up a little bit differently in different provinces and territories. It's not just a federal initiative. It is a federal provincial initiative. And there are different issues and different ways of structuring things in different provinces. But I would say the two provinces that are the most advanced are British Columbia and Newfoundland and Labrador. In fact, we will be making an announcement with respect to where we're at with the British Columbia process very soon. That is a tripartite process. It involves Indigenous peoples, it involves the provincial and federal government, but it also provides space and engagement with labor and with industry. And there have been early engagements with both of those, and there will be much more going forward.
Hearing is getting called, to a round table on the side isn't the same as being at the table. And if that's not happening in BC, I don't see it happening anywhere else. So you say that this is a federal-provincial partnership, but the feds are driving this agenda. So you get to say, if we're going to do this federal-provincial partnership, you get to say, to some degree, who's at the table. So is Labour at the table, are First Nations at the table, or are they in another room that get called on once in a while for advice?
So this is a consensual process with the provinces and territories. It is not just a federal initiative, and it does look different in different parts of the country. But in British Columbia, where we are working with, as you would know, an NDP government, it's a tripartite process that includes Indigenous peoples, but there is significant opportunity for engagement on the part of labor and industry.
Okay, and we're out of time on that. Thank you. Our next question goes to Ms. Stubbs for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, I just wanted to advise you that the project you referred to earlier in Saskatchewan, run by Canada's only rare earth mining company, was cancelled about 3 weeks ago. They've paused all their work there. So there just really is no other conclusion that after 8 years and $3.8 billion that you're spending in total on your so-called critical minerals and metals strategy is actually resulting in expensive roundtables, meetings, and you're utterly failing to capture the production, the value chains, the supply chains, and the exporting of critical minerals that are so important to reach your own stated public policy goals and also to reduce global dependence on hostile and despotic regimes. So moving on to LNG, the truth is, of course, this, after 8 years of your government since 2015, 13 West Coast, 3 East Coast, and 2 Quebec LNG export terminals have been proposed. You've approved 4, but the only one, and one of those approvals that's under construction was already, of course, approved by the former Conservative government. 0 are actually built in Canada. From Pacific Northwest LNG to Energy Saguenay to Kitimat LNG to Peerdrey Energy, who wants to build one on the East Coast, the proponents of all 15 cancelled or delayed LNG projects under your government in Canada, many who are now focused instead on other countries, cite, quote, delays and long regulatory timelines, and that these decisions are, quote, really driven by regulatory issues. Now, in the same time, in case you try to claim this is just a worldwide challenge, the U.S. constructed 7 LNG terminals. They've approved 20 more. They're on track to build 5 more this year. Germany asked for LNG from Canada, but the Prime Minister said, of course, we'll all remember, there's no business case, apparently only according to him, not to the rest of the world. So then Germany built an import facility in 194 days, had to go to Saudi Arabia and then cut a deal with Qatar for supply. So now, even though Canada is the 6th largest natural gas producer in the world, Mexico is now on track to become the 4th largest LNG exporter in the world, to beat Canada with 8 proposed terminals, and the first one will be ready in August. The advocates for major global investors in Canada say this is the problem. Quote, the biggest issue has been the regulatory delay and regulatory hurdles, pipeline construction, opposition to pipelines. Your LNG failures cost Canada $108 billion in government revenue, $500 billion in new investment, and 100,000 good-paying Canadian jobs, while you ceded the global market to Americans and to dictators and hostile regimes with lower environmental and human rights standards, meanwhile failing to provide our allies with the LNG they want and need from Canada. Now, you've stated, quote, the private sector should be putting up the money for these projects, with which, of course, Canadians totally, or Conservatives totally agree, including, by the way, on TMX, which should have been producing 5 years ago and not cost a single taxpayer cent. But it's clear your own government, its red tape, is driving away investment and opportunities for Canada. So, on what date will you actually accelerate approvals for LNG projects, just like the Deputy Prime Minister claims you guys want to do? And on what date will Canada actually export LNG to our free and democratic allies around the world and provide liquefied natural gas from one end of the country to the other for Canada's own self-sufficiency and security?
Well, thank you for the series of statements. What I would say, just to start with, is
Facts.
you are just wrong about mining. If you look at the total value of Canadian mineral production in 2021, it's tripled since 2002. It's actually up 20% in 2021 over the year before. We are seeing enormous growth with respect to the work that's being done.
It's not true for the critical minerals on your own list, but can you answer the questions about LNG?
In terms of LNG, I would say that, one of the challenges we've had in this country was the gutting of SIA 2012, or the gutting of the environmental assessment processes by the Harper government, which ruined the ability to actually achieve social license because nobody trusted that environmental issues were being addressed. We have 3 plants right now that are being under development. One is the LNG Canada facility. The second one is the Woodfibre facility. The third one is an Indigenous-led one, Cedar LNG, which went through the new process in less than 3 years. So we've made significant progress ensuring that we are doing this in a manner that is consistent with Canada's climate obligations. And I would just tell you, with respect to the Repsol project in particular, I would just encourage you to call the Repsol folks because what you just said is just not correct.
Minister, your red tape has also killed the only tidal project in Canada for exactly the same reasons. The problem is domestic, it's your own government.
To Mr. Shahal for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for joining us today. In June 2020, Northeast Calgary was hit with a massive hailstorm, resulting in an estimated $1.3 billion in insurable damages. We know that extreme weather events are driven by climate change, and they have the potential to devastate communities. Today, we are seeing another manifestation of climate change with the wildfires in Alberta, a province-wide state of emergency that is forcing thousands to leave their homes. Minister, can you please tell this committee how the Climate Change Adaptation Program will help Canadian cities and communities plan and implement adaptation actions to help reduce the risks of climate change?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Firstly, let me just reiterate that certainly my thoughts go out to all those in Alberta who have been evacuated from their homes or impacted by the wildfires. I would also like to thank the first responders and Canadians from across the country who are coming together to support Albertans in their time of need. As the Prime Minister reiterated yesterday, in Alberta, we are here for you, and we are going to ensure that you get the support that you need, working in collaboration with, of course, your provincial and municipal authorities. Right now, my department is assisting with monitoring and helping to inform planning and supply of resources and facilitating fire perimeter mapping. NRCan continues to assess its capabilities to support and the potential or direct impact on critical infrastructure. As you may have noted, to your question in particular, there are about $46 million in investments in the main estimates to strengthen capabilities in wildlife management, including bolstering provincial and territorial agency wildland firefighting equipment and strengthening the role of Indigenous participation in fire management through community-based training and the establishment of Indigenous Fire Stewardship Lab. A number of agreements have already been signed with provinces, including Alberta, with Indigenous communities and organizations to begin that training and support the acquisition of new wildfire fighting equipment. As it is related to the National Adaptation Strategy and how it will help communities adapt to the risks of climate change, the strategy is providing up to $530 million to expand the Green Municipal Fund to support community-based adaptation initiatives, enhancing community prevention and mitigation activities, supporting innovation in wildfire fire knowledge and research, and establishing a center of excellence for wildland fire innovation and resilience. And again, I would just say my thoughts are certainly with those that are impacted by the fires in Alberta, and we are here to help.
Thank you for that in-depth answer, Minister. Minister, people living in my riding are always looking for opportunities to save money in an increasingly expensive world. One of the best ways to do that is to invest in making our homes more energy efficient and resilient. Minister, can you please tell us about the measures our Liberal government is taking to help Canadians retrofit their homes to be greener and, in the long run, more affordable?
Thanks for the question. Certainly, significantly reducing energy use in our buildings and homes not only makes home heating more affordable, it creates good-paying local jobs and lowers greenhouse gas emissions. That is why we introduced the Canada Greener Homes Grant, so Canadians can take climate action at home and save on energy. Through this program, Canadians are eligible for up to $5,000 towards the cost of home retrofits like solar panels or better windows or heat pumps. We also announced the Oil to Heat Pump Affordability Grant last November as a new stream under the already very popular Canada Greener Homes Initiative. This grant is self-explanatory. It allows homeowners to swap out their oil furnaces for heat pumps. Through this initiative, families across the country are able to save thousands of dollars in their annual heating bills.
Minister, how is the government investing in growing the generation capacity that we need for clean, reliable, and affordable grid of the future?
Well, look, building a clean Canadian power grid at the scale and the pace that is necessary is an enormous undertaking. It is a nation-building project as great as, in terms of scale and importance, as any that we have undertaken in our history. We are, I think, all very proud that 83% of our grid right now comes from zero-emission sources. We need, though, a much bigger and ultimately 100% clean grid. We need to double or more the electricity generation capacity in this country by 2050. A clean electricity grid is an enormous economic advantage for Canada as our largest trading partners increasingly look to forge trade relationships that favor low-carbon exports and imports like low-carbon steel, low-carbon aluminum. While it isn't yet clear, I think, to the Conservative Party, the rest of the world knows a clean, reliable, and affordable electricity grid is key to building a strong, clean economy and necessary to position our country for opportunity in the centuries ahead. We are focused on doing the work that is necessary to seize this generational opportunity. This is a race that we cannot afford to lose. In Budget 2023, we announced over $40 billion for the development of a clean grid, including measures like the Clean Electricity Investment Tax Credit to help provinces and territories build out the grid they need, the CCUS investment tax credit, the clean hydrogen tax credit. We also, in Budget 2023, had $3 billion to recapitalize the fund we use for renewable energy projects and the smart grid program. And
Minister,
we announced the Canada Infrastructure Bank will invest at least $10 billion through its clean power priority area.
we're out of time there, so thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. We're going to go to Monsieur Simard next for his 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Jérôme.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Minister, you just spoke about green aluminum. We do have to have some low carbon emission products, but this sector with a low carbon footprint, one of the most obvious one is the forest industry that has a low carbon footprint. But now the forestry sector is dealing with a perfect storm. Especially in Quebec, we have American tariffs that are applied to the producers that are excessive. Right now, for some forestry products, $584 million that have to go to the U.S., so we can't invest that money in our facilities. In Lac-Saint-Jean, it's $200 billion that are taken out of that sector. But unfortunately, the federal government doesn't have any support programs, so they go into technical bankruptcy. If I look at other natural resources sector, such as the hydrogen that gets some financial support and the oil and gas sector that gets support as well. I'm sure that you will agree with me to say that the forestry sector is the poor cousin. My question is very simple. I would like to know, Mr. Minister, whether you have a clear strategy to develop the forestry sector. For example, to develop products that have a very high value-added product. Thank you very much for the questions. I fully agree with what you have just said with regard to the U.S. tariffs. This is a major issue, and we obviously have to work together with the provinces and territories and the Quebec government. I was with Quebec's forestry minister some time ago, and we discussed this. Yes, we must invest to ensure that we develop products that have high value. In the bill, we planned to invest nearly $400 billion.
Minutes.
Thank you. 3 days ago, Lana Payne, the head of Unifor, called on this government not to gamble with the 2,500 jobs at Stellantis in Windsor. This plant is essential. I mean, the Chrysler workers have been the backbone of the Windsor economy. The Stellantis EV plant is key for us to actually have a clean tech economy. And yet, Stellantis is accusing the government of not delivering on the promises that it made on the investments, and they've suspended production. So what's it going to take to get the federal government to come back to the table, make sure those jobs are secured, get the production up and running, and not leave workers in Windsor holding the bag?
Well, just as you, I am very focused on working to ensure that this Stellantis project moves ahead. Of course, Minister Champagne is the lead minister on that. But it is not just Stellantis and the federal government. It is also the province of Ontario. It is important that the province of Ontario and Premier Ford are participants financially in the work that is being done. It is not solely the responsibility of the federal government, and I think the province increasingly understands that. We are working towards resolution of this, but it does need to include participation by Ontario.
Not just the issue down in the auto belt. My region, Tim and James Bay, is base metal country. We need markets to be able to expand to. We have mines coming on stream. Now, the leader of the Conservative Party was in my riding recently, and he was making fun about EV cars. I don't know what's so funny about cars that are going to be using all the products that our miners produce. But we want to know, in mining country and in auto country, that this government has their back, that they are going to continue the kind of investments that we've seen at Volkswagen, that they're not going to blow Stellantis, and that they will make Ontario a centre for EV battery production. What commitments will this government make to make sure that that happens?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would agree with you that it's very unfortunate that the leader of the Conservative Party makes fun of electric vehicles. I think it belies the lack of belief in climate change and the lack of any plan from an economic perspective to benefit from the changes that are going to be coming. That's very, very disappointing. But what I would say is we are fundamentally committed to ensuring that we are building end-to-end supply chains. That very much includes the processing of those minerals. It very much includes battery manufacturing and automotive manufacturing. We've made that statement with a number of the announcements that have been made prior to the Volkswagen announcement. We made it again with the Volkswagen announcement, and I think you can anticipate we will continue to make that a focus.
Okay, thank you. We're out of time on this one. And now we are going to Mr. McLean, who will have 5 minutes for his questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Great to see you, Minister. Minister, I'm disappointed you chose not to be here in person today. I'll tell you that right now. I have noticed, Minister, as you've learned this portfolio, how your narrative has changed from when you're the Minister of the Environment, and I say that with great respect, because I think that the learning you've done in this sector has been profound. But I'm going to ask you a question because I'll follow on with my colleague where she led on the critical mineral strategy. You're a big advocate of critical minerals. Can you tell me what you think the critical minerals will contribute to the Canadian economy as a number in the next 5 years per year?
As I say, I mean, I think the critical minerals, well, first of all, let me just respond. I mean, I hear you in terms of in person. The only thing I would say is I have appeared before this committee now 7 times since I was appointed, and certainly I endeavor to be there in person as much as I possibly can. In terms of critical minerals, I've said many times, it is a generational economic opportunity. It is not just the mining. It is about processing. It is about battery manufacturing. It is about electric vehicle manufacturing. It is about recycling.
Okay, Minister, I asked a question about the size of the contribution to the Canadian economy.
And we've seen 20% increase just over the last year. We expect to see those kinds of increases going forward.
Can we get a number?
We expect to see significant increases going forward.
So last year, the mining industry alone put in about $2.5 billion into the Canadian economy. The oil and gas industry put in nearly $50 billion into the Canadian economy as far as investments go. So we are talking about a sector that right now is 1/25th the size of the oil and gas industry in Canada as far as its economic investment into Canada. In addition, $400 million of that was a gift from the from the federal government in the form of credits, investment tax credits, which go to rich people. People in the top marginal tax bracket are the ones benefiting from this. So in that respect, we're really talking about, give or take, $2 billion of private sector activity into the economy that isn't, so $2 billion versus $50 billion. Do you see now why there's a bit of a disconnect, why you think this is going to replace Canada's biggest economic engine?
I don't know where you got that, the idea that it's going to replace the oil and gas sector. I've never said that, and I don't think any reasonable person would say that. The oil and gas sector is going to continue to be important through the energy transition, and to the extent that the oil and gas sector, which most of the participants there actually agree, are work to decarbonize the sector, it will continue to be an important part of the Canadian economy. I'm not putting the mining sector against the oil and gas sector. There are enormous opportunities in the oil and gas sector. If you think about hydrogen and hydrogen from gas using carbon capture, about very low carbon oil and the utilization of that in non-combustion applications, they're both important.
Yes, thank you, Minister. The issue I'm bringing up here is, of course, your insistence upon the critical minerals sector as if it is the only sector that requires sustenance going forward here. You're putting a lot of money into it. You're spending a lot of tax dollars on it. In the end, it is a minor contribution. As far as energy in this country goes, critical minerals do not produce energy. They store energy, and they're used for other high-tech operations. But we need energy in Canada to continue to sustain ourselves as a viable country going forward here, where jobs are going to come. Now, your government has committed a lot of money towards these plants for electric vehicles. It's committed a lot of money through the chain along the way, and yet you can see that there's very little coming in the front door for the next 20 years as far as critical minerals go. In another example, you've got the Ring of Fire in Ontario, which is going to take decades to develop, but you found out as well that will mean unearthing sphagnum, so effectively peat moss, which is going to emit 1.6 billion tons in the Ring of Fire alone of CO2 that's already trapped there. Do you see the circularity of how you're actually not getting to a climate solution here?
Well, no. I mean, first of all, we've dedicated enormous resources to the energy sector as well through the CCUS tax credit, through the hydrogen tax credit. So I think you've got to be careful about some of the things that you say in terms of where the money's going. But I would also say that with respect to projects, we are seeing an enormous uptick in terms of the number of projects. We will see much more coming through the front door. And the Ring of Fire is one of the more challenging areas for exactly the reasons that you mentioned, as well as some concerns on the part of a number of Indigenous communities. And if you're going to develop Ring of Fire, you have to do it in a manner that is not going to disturb the peat, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. You are correct about that. But that doesn't mean that there are not ways to do it in a manner that actually addresses environment and addresses concerns, legitimate concerns the Indigenous communities in the area have.
Thank you. We're out of time. And our final question, 5 minutes for the minister, will be with Mr. Sorbara. And at that point, we'll be bidding adieu to the minister, and we'll keep our officials for 15 minutes, and then we'll get into the final part of the meeting. So, Mr. Sorbara, over to you for 5.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Minister. I hope Vancouver is as lovely as always. First question. Last month, Minister, I had the privilege of being part of the historic announcement where it was announced that Volkswagen will be constructing its first overseas electric vehicle battery factory in St. Thomas, Ontario. And as chair of the Liberal Auto Caucus, I welcome, very much so, this transformational partnership and investment, as it will not only strengthen the auto sector, but also create thousands, literally tens of thousands, of well-paying jobs across the country as we work towards a cleaner and greener economy. Given that Canada has the raw materials and the skilled workforce, and this government believes in Canadians and its workforce, what is our government doing to make sure that we stay on track to delivering this clean technology investment that can keep up with global North American demand for zero-emission vehicles for decades to come?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I know what a strong advocate you are for bringing the auto sector back to life in Canada after the sector dwindled during the Harper era. We are certainly proud of our collective success in bringing it back. These investments are delivering thousands of good-paying jobs for Canadians, while further establishing Canada as a leader in the clean technology race. These companies, like Volkswagen, are choosing to invest here because of our highly skilled and educated workforce, the access to clean power grids, and abundant natural resources, including critical minerals. Your question is at the heart of why we developed the critical mineral strategy. We saw that the global economy would be increasingly dependent on critical minerals and metals for clean technologies. We are working to support increased extraction, processing, and recycling of critical minerals, key to supporting the electric vehicle supply chain, through measures that include the Clean Technology Manufacturing Investment Tax Credit, which will support Canadian companies to help with investments in new machinery and equipment. Will be allowing producers of lithium from brines to issue flow-through shares and to expand the eligibility of the Canadian Critical Minerals Exploration Tax Credit to lithium from brines. Just recently, as you know, we gave approval to 2 mines, the Marathon Palladium Mine, the James Bay Lithium Mine, which will each produce essential critical minerals needed for EV batteries, and each will deliver hundreds of good-paying jobs. Before I just give it back to you, I just want to note that the Conservatives have been against these investments in Canadian businesses and Volkswagen's business investments in Canadians. They have no economic plan for a low-carbon future. It really is incredibly disappointing to hear that the Leader of the Opposition laughs when we talk about electric vehicle. They have not done the work necessary to actually understand what's at stake and what opportunities are actually in front of us.
Thank you, Minister, for that answer, and it's great to see the government making the key investments to grow our economy and strengthen the middle class. Minister, this morning I had the pleasure of meeting with Electricity Canada, and later on this evening, in partnership with Electricity Canada, we'll be sponsoring the reception here on the Hill. And we know a clean electrical grid, we know the electrical grid, needs to be secure, clean, and affordable for Canadians. We also know that going forward, we need to increase the base load of our electrical grid. That will need to be there to handle the increased use of electric vehicles and so forth. I wanted to ask a question on the Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways program, which I believe was in the budget, and how specifically that will help communities and organizations acquire the knowledge and tools needed to develop renewable energy and grid modernization projects as we move forward to a fully clean electrical grid.
Okay, well, thanks for the question, and I'm glad you noted Electricity Canada. I would just highlight the fact that Electricity Canada has put out a statement saying Budget 2023 was transformative, that it will make electricity clean, but also affordable, which of course is very important. The Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways program, or what we call SREPs, is already helping communities across this country seize new economic opportunities while creating good jobs for those who live there. In fact, it is often Indigenous communities who are leading on this project. So the Oasis Solar Energy Farm in Saskatchewan with Cowessess First Nation to supporting Summerside PEI to produce grid-resilient solar energy, which was vital in keeping the lights on when Hurricane Fiona hit. The program has made significant progress developing renewables and launching grid modernization projects. In fact, just a few months ago in your own backyard, Minister Freeland announced support for the Oneida Battery Storage Program with the Six Nations of the Grand River. That received $50 million from SREPs and will become one of the largest battery storage projects in the world. It will more than double the battery storage power that exists in Ontario. And earlier this month, 2 proposed wind farms in Nova Scotia were approved through the environmental assessment. These projects were supported by the government with an investment of $125 million. These projects will supply Nova Scotia with 350 megawatts of clean power. So the SREPs program is very important. It also supports capacity building, and certainly many Indigenous communities have taken advantage of that. It's a very important program, and yes, it was topped up in Budget 2023.
Thank you,
That's
Minister.
the end of our time. And Minister, I understand that this is when you need to make your departure, so feel free to sign off. Always appreciate you coming and joining us, the committee. You've been here, as you said, many times, and it's always good to hear from you. We'll ask the officials to stay. We have 15 minutes of questions, 5 from Mr. Patzer, 5 from Mr. Bruson, 2.5 from Mr. Simard, and 2.5 from Mr. Angus, and then we'll get into the final part of the meeting. So with that, Mr. Patzer, we'll go over to you for your 5 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to the officials for being here. There's a specific line item, both in grants and contributions, called Grants in Support of Clean Energy for Rural and Remote Communities. I wonder if you could just take a couple seconds to maybe highlight a couple projects, or what specifically is the government targeting with those line items?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So those are programs that support rural and remote communities and Indigenous communities in getting off diesel in their communities. So those are the program's been around for I'm going to forget the number off the top of my head, but for a while. And so we have been successful in setting up clean energy projects that support that commitment of getting off diesel.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious too quickly if somebody has, do you have a definition for rural? What you're using for that definition? Like what does rural mean to the departments when we talk about rural?
I'm sure that there is some in our terms and conditions. We have a definition of rural, and I can ask one of my colleagues on the line to jump in, or I can follow up with the committee if that's helpful.
If somebody has, yeah, is that person on the line as well? Or yeah, sure. If somebody has that for about 10 seconds, that'd be great. Thanks.
Christina, could I ask you to jump on that?
I'm sorry, I can't answer, but happy to follow up.
That's good. I will take that. If you could follow up in writing, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much. So, what a problem that I have, again, with this being the main estimates. I mean, we had the same issue with the supplementary estimates, and I mean, I know, granted, it's the minister and it's the prime minister that set objectives and different things like that here, but I'm just wondering, like, there's no funding allocated for the just transition, right? I've got a letter here from, and I've received many of these letters. This is from people from Willowbunch, people from Rock Glen, people from Coronach, people that are working at the Westmoreland Coal Power Station and the mine there. Their concern is the region is losing $30 million in annual payroll with the phase out. COVID wiped out 2 years of government planning. But since COVID's ended, we've had about 2 years and still nothing. So we've lost 4 years. Timelines aren't moving up. I'm just wondering, from your guys' viewpoint and perspective, again, I recognize that you work within the department. You know, you're not the one setting the obvious objective. But as far as the ones who are delivering a lot of the programs and things like that, why is a just transition just not being prioritized? Yet when there's a hard and fast timeline, we've lost 4 years. Why is it not being prioritized?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I'm here with the letters and the challenges and what you are hearing. Very empathetic to the folks in your community. I think this is something that's on our radar and something that we're considering a lot in terms of what the opportunities are. We know that it's not going to be possible to move jobs from one urban center to a rural center and doing those, but in looking at the opportunities in terms of clean technology, biomass, other projects, we are spending a lot of time considering what can be done and what the opportunities are, and really do want to work through the regional tables, through the opportunities that we have in partnership with folks in coal-affected communities or in coal-based communities, so that we can support that transformation.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, obviously the American Treasury has access to a lot of money that obviously Canada does not. We cannot beat the Americans when it comes to money. The one thing that we could, though, be competitive with them, and quite frankly, we should aspire to beat them in, is streamlining regulations to be able to get projects built and accomplished. So I'm just wondering, is the department working to streamline regulations so that way, the minister said it, hey, we had an approval of under 3 years on a project. Wow, 3 years, really? That's fantastic, right? But like, if we want to be serious and try to beat the Americans, what is being done throughout the department to try to make sure that we have the regulatory certainty, so that way we're not celebrating just under 3 years? We should be having projects completed in under 3 years, not just approved in under 3 years. What's being done to make sure that we can get that done and accomplished?
Thanks very much. We know that the fastest way for us to achieve our goals with respect to economic prosperity, energy security, with respect to the environment, the fastest way to get things done is by getting projects built and getting them built quickly. We are focused, as the minister had said, on having an approach working across the federal department federal departments to streamline the regulatory review and permitting process, with results that would come out by the end of 2023, by the end of the year, and that builds on other investments. But I would say as well, it's not just what we do at the federal level. There are the provincial processes, there are permitting processes, there are the partners that we work with. And so we're very focused on not just what we can do within our zone of control, but how we work with all of of those other players to make sure that our systems get things done faster so that we're able to achieve all of those outcomes together.
Okay, thank you. We're out of time on that one. Mr. Bruson, over to you for your 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. So there's already been a bit of talk about electricity, and I was hoping to kind of pull on that a little bit more, but particularly when we're talking about nuclear, because that's a big part of the source of clean electricity in Ontario. And I often get a lot of questions about what we're doing to support the nuclear part of our electrical grid and also the safety issues. So I saw that there is funding for the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about what does that funding go towards, and what work the Nuclear Safety Commission is doing right now.
Perfect. Thanks very much for the question. And I might just pass it over to Shirley just to talk a little bit about what the CNSC is doing. But off the top, I would say that the safety of Canada's nuclear facilities of our regime, like we're known and renowned as being one of the top nuclear regulator in the world, and we continue to focus on that, particularly as we're looking at continuing to manage the nuclear that we have and considering the opportunities to deploy nuclear to look at clean baseload power across Canada to support our net zero and decarbonization objectives. But Shirley?
Thanks, Molly. Maybe I can just add that the funding further goes to implement Canada's international commitments on the peaceful use of nuclear energy and dissemination objectives specific to regulatory information and members to the public. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you for that and giving me a bit more background. And the reason that I think people are particularly interested too is because we're hearing a lot more conversation about SMRs. There was the announcement about the Darlington, the first, I believe, grid level SMR. And so maybe if you would be able to tell me a little bit more about the SMR strategy and what you see happening in the world of SMRs.
That's a big world. But to say, I mean, with small modular reactors, yeah, 3 minutes. Okay, so small modular reactors, I mean, it's Canada released the Small Modular Reactor Action Plan as an opportunity to talk about how we could figure out what the art of the possible is. And it wasn't a federal-only strategy. It was working with provinces, Indigenous groups, civil society, universities, scientists. The whole idea really is to try and mobilize how we can throw in together to capture this opportunity for Canada. And what's really important about this is, going everywhere from critical minerals, and I point to Jeff, given his role in the critical mineral strategy, all the way through to this clean power supply that we can have in Canada as a secure supply chain, really trying to capitalize on that in Canada. So, we are very fortunate to have at Darlington an EA site where a 300 megawatt GE SMR is being explored and permitted. We've got AECL, which is Canada's lab that is looking at this and providing us with some good lessons learned. We have the CNSC, which is going to be looking at how we can regulate and permit this as fast as possible, ensuring that we are looking at Indigenous consultation and engagement and all of the environmental protection considerations, because if this is Canada's advantage, it is ours to lose, and we really want to ensure that we are continuing to maintain this advantage as we consider the opportunities and potential for Canada.
And in my final minute, because if I was going to close out, we've kind of talked about a few different aspects when it comes to nuclear, but the other one is a nuclear waste management organization and the work that they're doing. And I know that I don't believe they're present today, but I don't know if you have anything that you might be able to update us to the work that they're doing right now.
Thanks. It's for folks who haven't had an opportunity to learn about the NWMO, I would encourage you to do so, given their engagement process, which really sort of starts with a reverse onus, asking people if they want the site, and if they do want the site to opt in as opposed to sort of pushing it on other people. It's been quite impressive. And in fact, they are in Washington right now briefing the United States on how they can work together on this the process that they have championed. They are getting closer to the selection process on how they work with this and down to 2 sites, and it's a 10 to 15-year process that has been underway. So there will be continued news on it, but it's an important part of how we have a safe and long-term management strategy for waste that has been generated over Canada's 70 years of peaceful use of nuclear.
That's, 10 seconds. Okay, we'll stop there, and we'll now go to Monsieur Simard, who will have 2.5 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you, John. I think to tie in with Judy's question, I think Canada is one of the only countries that considers nuclear energy as clean energy. Is that correct?
Union, they have classified it as clean energy as well.
Donc,
so if you consider it clean energy, does that mean that nuclear energy will be part of the entire strategy that is going to be implemented, especially considering electrification? There'll be tax credits. I'm thinking about the $10 billion in the budget. There could be credits for nuclear plants that would create electricity because nuclear is considered clean energy.
Thanks for the question. So nuclear is part of the energy mix, and when we're looking at decarbonization of Canada's energy system, nuclear is one of the pathways that we are considering.
parfait, merci.
Perfect, thanks. A little earlier, when you answered my colleague's question, you talked about the transition. You talked about regional roundtables that are being set up. To my knowledge, there hasn't been any discussion with Quebec with regard to the implementation of these regional roundtables.
Conversations have begun with the province of Quebec. A table isn't formally established yet.
Oui. Bon, je sais pas, je vais.
I'm not going to spread any gossip here or start any rumors, but I thought that Quebec wasn't interested in that formula. Let's say Quebec doesn't see any interest in the setting up of round tables to discuss everything that is going to be involved in this implementation and the sums involved. Has the government, federal government, talked about any other potential mechanism?
So I don't have information on what the alternative arrangements would be at this time, but what I can say is that our path forward on decarbonization and economic opportunity is going to require partnership with all, at multiple levels that we've been discussing and as the minister discussed.
Merci.
Merci à vous.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry, just getting some logistics sorted out here. Mario's time is done, and now we'll go to Charlie for his 2.5 minutes.
Thank you for being here again, and I might have mentioned it the last time, but my memory does tell me that I did a show with a Molly Johnson. But that wasn't you? Yeah, I was thinking, you didn't look like her, but then I don't look like I did either back then. So I was thinking maybe that's just the years. So you were a different Molly Johnson. Okay, I just want to confirm that. I want to find out about the Sustainable Jobs Partnership Council. Will that be a project of Natural Resources Canada? Like, where is this thing? Is this a standalone, or is this something that's a project?
So, Mr. Chair, at this point, we're waiting for decisions on where the Partnership Council will sit within the machinery of government, and so happy to provide that information as soon as it's available.
So then the question would be, does this thing have a mandate? Like, what is it?
Again, I would need to, I can, again, sort of do my call a friend and see, Christina, if you have any additional details that you're able to share, or otherwise happy to come back to you, Mr.
My concern here is, again, I got to go back to talking to our partners, in the building trades, IBW, Unifor, electrical workers, and say, you've got a seat, apparently, but we don't know where it is. We don't know what it does. We've got legislation that's coming any time now. Is it going to be in the legislation to explain to them so that I don't have to explain to them what this body is or what it does?
And as the minister said, between the action plan and between the legislation, the details are going to be available.
expecting that soon. So they should have that figured out by then, right? Because
Should
I
have
really
that
want to
figured out.
reassure labor that there is going to be a table, and it's going to have some kind of mandate. It's going to do something. It'll be someplace, but it will be something. Would that be fair to say?
That would be fair to say, Mr. Angus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Seconds if you want. Okay. We're okay. I just okay. Charlie, I have a question for you. Then I'll use your 30 seconds.
I'll take his like 30 seconds.
No, what it is, we were going to conclude the third round. Technically, has 5 minutes at the end for the Conservatives and 5 minutes for the Liberals. And the Conservatives have asked for the time. I do need to allow time to do the vote. And so by unanimous consent, we could vote the main estimates in one motion. And so if you and Mario agree, the Liberals and the Conservatives have agreed to do that, then we could do 5 minutes, the unanimous consent, vote in one motion, and travel and still be finished by 5:30. Okay, thank you. So officials, hopefully you haven't jumped off the line yet. If we could keep you for an extra 10 minutes, 5 with the Conservatives, 5 with the Liberals, and we will still have you done before 5:30. So I think, Todd, you're going to be first, so we'll go to you for your 5 minutes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Charlie still has 30 seconds, does he not? He's seated?
I gave up 30 seconds so you could get 5 minutes. Man, do I feel like a chump.
Well,
so over to you, Todd, for your 5.
Partners. No.
But if anybody doesn't want to use their full 5, we can put that in the bank as well.
thank you, Mr. Chair. To our officials, thank you for being here. I'm new to this committee, but not new to the issues of wildfires. As you know, my region in 2017, 2018, and our province, indeed, of British Columbia, suffered some of the worst wildfires in the history of our country, and indeed we are burning now as the northeast of British Columbia is and Alberta is as well. In 2021, Prime Minister Trudeau, as well as members of British Columbia of the Liberal Party from the British Columbia, stood and made a pledge for $500 million to train 1,000 more firefighters, including the use of and purchase of Canadian firefighting equipment. Can you tell me how much of that, how many firefighters have been trained, and how much of that money has been spent? I've looked in the estimates, 2021 expenditures, 2022 expenditures, and there's nothing there. So do we know how many firefighters have been trained?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. I'm going to ask Monique Frison from the Canadian Forest Service to get on the line just so that we can get you the exact information.
Hello. So far, the Canadian Interagency Forest Fires, the Canadian Centre for Interagency Cooperation, has received $5 million to enhance cooperation among jurisdictions so that they can help each other during the time of wildland fire. About $6 million have gone to Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC to purchase equipment, and we'll have purchases for Northwest Territories, the Yukon, and Nova Scotia as well. Of the 1,000 firefighters that we said last fiscal year would be trained, about 300 of those have been trained so far. And as we're going along in a season like this, as the minister said earlier, the Canadian Forest Service continues to provide support when it comes to wildland fire monitoring and
Thank
modeling.
you. Thank you for that. Where would that $500 million be allocated? Where is it located in the estimates?
There are a couple of places in the estimates. You can see, we can send a list through.
That would be great.
I'd be
Thank
able
you.
to find them for you. There are probably 3 different line items in the estimates.
Okay, thank you. In June 2022, this department released a document called Canadian Dialogue on Wildland Fire and Forest Resilience. What we heard in there was a lot of comments, and I'm just trying to get the quotes associated with this minister in relation to wildland fire and forest resilience, building resilient communities and financial instruments to support wildland fire resilience. To our colleagues here that to the department, it says that in these estimates, Natural Resources Canada requested $1.7 million in contributions supporting wildland fire resilience, a decrease compared to $2 million in 2022. Main estimates and $2.3 million in expenditures in 2021, when we are currently seeing more than 60 wildfires that are active and burning across our province and indeed Alberta, and we are seeing more and more of these massive natural resource or natural events. Why is this money decreasing? And can you tell me for how hundreds of communities are going to share $1.7 million to make themselves more resilient or fire resilient? It's unbelievable when this number continues to decrease.
For the question and recognize that there is a lot to do in a lot of communities, and my expectation is that's the funding profile, but we will continue to do the work. But Monique, is there anything you wish to add to that?
No, just that there are a number of items in the main estimates that are related to fire. So that's one of many of the investments that we'll be making in the following fiscal year.
I've seen two line items relating to wildland fire and fire. And perhaps you can direct me to where they are, and we'll have a look at that. I see climate change adaptation. I would assume that that's probably one of them, but again, I'm just assuming. But contributions in support of fighting and managing wildfires and changing climate. We have contributions in support of wildland fire resilience, and to me, that is really where the money should be spent in our communities and fire smarting, whether it's our Indigenous communities or rural and remote communities that are right on the front lines, or even deputizing some of our Indigenous communities and our loggers and our farmers to be able to be on the front lines to protect their homes and well-being.
Mr. Doherty, we're out of the time, so I'd say if you have a question, maybe get to that.
I'll do it right now.
Yeah, perfect.
And so $1.7 million for that just doesn't seem enough. Would you agree?
We would certainly agree that prevention of wildland fire across Canada has to be a whole of society effort, and you certainly would have seen that in the What We Heard report that you mentioned earlier. We certainly also agree that there are plenty of communities in Canada that could benefit from further implementation of the Fire Smart program, and we're doing a lot of work on that. And as we said earlier, we'd be happy to provide you with the list of all of the fire items in the main estimates, that you can take a look at all of those.
We'll be able to provide that by the end of this week. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. And I understand that the members on to my right have agreed to not take their 5 minutes. So with that, I'd like to thank the officials for being here. Those online, feel free to jump off. And thank you so much for always accepting the invite to come here and for sharing your information. So thank you, and we'll let you go and continue with your day. For the members, the business, I think we've agreed, but I'll ask the question, do I have unanimous consent to vote the main estimates in one motion? Thank you. So the motion is, shall vote 1 under Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, vote 1 under Canadian Energy Regulator, vote 1 under Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, votes 1, 5, and 10 under Department of Natural Resources, and vote 1 under Northern Pipeline Agency, less the amounts voted in the interim supply carry. Yes. On division. Okay, thank you. And the last thing before we go, colleagues, we sent off just at the start of the meeting today the revised travel proposal for the fall trip related to the power grid study that we will have sometime this fall. And when we had sent it off to logistics for costing, for all of the places we had put in there, it would have been a 14-day trip and at a budget much beyond what we would ever hope to receive. So I did ask the analysts to go through and pare it down. And that is what was distributed. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, the locations that we costed out for this trip would be including Fort Nelson, Fort St. John, Edmonton, and Fort Chip, and as well as Fort McMurray, then Regina and surrounding areas, either Coronach or Poplar River Power Station, but we wouldn't, that Boundary Dam or Poplar River. So we wouldn't be able to do either, but we could, the costs are about the same if we do Regina and one of those. And then also including Montreal for the areas, some site visits there. I can get the analysts to speak to it if people have looked at the report or the proposal. Just if anybody has any questions, and then we'll, yeah, if there's discussion. So, Mr. McLean, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Environment Committee is considering the same trip up to Fort Chipewyan, Fort McMurray, obviously, and surrounding communities. And it might be an economy if we can get there all together and both participate in what we need to see there.
Great to speak to the chair of the Environment Committee if we get approved. So, Mr. Angus.
If this is about electrification, shouldn't we have one out to the Maritimes? Because the Atlantic Loop is a big issue.
The issue then becomes either adding time and cost or dropping one of the areas that we had. Now, I don't know if when the analysts looked at it, they were trying to give a variety of types of projects that we'd be seeing, and I can have them speak to that briefly if you'd like to hear the rationale for why. Yeah, but ideally, it would have been great to go.
I just want to get out of this room, so wherever we go, I don't care.
Well, we have a proposal that's before you. If people have had a chance to look for it, are you willing to submit this to liaison for request to start fall travel? Okay, so all in favor? And opposed? Okay, that's carried. We'll send that to liaison for their consideration. And with that, folks, just so you know, we have the constituency week next week. When we come back, we have paper excellence confirmed for the Tuesday with witnesses, and then Friday will be officials for an hour. Just Transition or Sustainable Jobs Report, draft version 2 has been distributed, and so we can get into the first Friday back, the beginning of the review of the report, and then that will continue on until we complete it. And with that, have a great rest of the week, safe constituency week, and we're adjourned.